Two Democratic Party lawmakers to be arrested on Monday over LegCo protest. Lawmakers want scope of checks at Hong Kong Station to be widened. And Canada says arrest of Huawei finance chief is not a political move.
Good evening. Outrage from the Democratic Party tonight after police notified two lawmakers of their impending arrest for protesting in LegCo. The party has slammed the government for setting a bad precedent against opposition lawmakers. Our Caleb Leung has the details.
It was Andrew Wen and Lam Cheuk Ting who received the call from the police today. Their impending arrest stems from their protest in the LegCo chamber against LegCo President Andrew Leung on June 13th, when lawmakers passed the second reading of the Express Rail Link co-location bill. Andrew Wen insists he is innocent.
I was standing and trying to talk to the president and try to clarify why he makes such a silly and wrong decision. According to the Power and Privilege Ordinance, I don't think anyone can obstruct my duty at the same time.
On that day, Andrew Leung ordered both Lam and Wen to leave the chamber for shouting in their seats. Both were manhandled out of the chamber. The Secretariat called the police after two security guards claimed they were injured. The pair will report to Wan Chai Police Station on Monday. They will likely be charged with obstructing an officer of the council while in the execution of his duty. Wen is expected to be slapped with an extra charge of common assault. Lam condemned the prosecution as politically motivated.
They just want to send a clear message to all of us. Shut your mouth. Sit on your seat and just press the button to be the councillor. If that is the precedence, then all the Democrats could not protest any ridiculous ruling made by the president in the future.
Some pro-establishment lawmakers supported the government's decision to lay charges. Priscilla Leung of the Business and Professionals Alliance said there were occasional cases of guards sustaining injuries after they were charged at by lawmakers. Pressing charges on the two lawmakers will effectively put LegCo's parliamentary culture back on track, she said. Caleb Leung, TVB News.
Lawmakers are demanding a broader range of checks at the Hong Kong Station extension amid reports of substandard construction. But the government is ruling it out. Kena Chu reports.
The government has accepted the MTRC's suggestion to crack open at least 80 random spots at the Hong Kong Station extension of the Sha Tin Central Link. Couplers and metal bars on the station's east-west corridor and the north-south corridor's platforms will be checked. But at a meeting of the Legislative Council's subcommittee on matters relating to railways, lawmakers questioned whether the proposed sampling number is too little.
That is less than 1% of the total. People are saying that you should at least check 5% of the connections to be meaningful.
The government says the method is backed by statistics.
Even for the census we have in Hong Kong, we have 7 million people. If we use 5%, then we have to poll at least 350,000 Hong Kong people. This is not practical.
Legislator Chang Chung-tai asked under what circumstances would the platform be entirely demolished.
I don't want to engage in any, if the situation is not very desirable, we have to consider consolidation.
Some lawmakers were also concerned about the feasibility of operating the rail link just partially.
Is there room for trains to turn around when you want to have partial commissioning, and have you assessed the impact on Kwun Tong line if you are going to commission the line on a partial basis?
Jacob Tam, the MTRC's managing director of operations and mainland business, said the rail operator is actively looking into the possibility of the line's partial commissioning. The government hopes to announce a decision as soon as possible. Kana Chu, TVB News.
Police have arrested a man in connection with a body found in the sea near Aberdeen. Officers took the suspect to the coast near Wafu Estate to assist with their investigation. The suspect, the son of the victim, was in Taiwan when police contacted him. He agreed to return to Hong Kong to surrender himself and was arrested at the airport last night. An investigation found the man went to his father's home in Tuen Mun to borrow money on Tuesday. According to police, he killed his father after his dad refused to loan him money. Then he took the body to Aberdeen for disposal the next day.
Huawei's chief financial officer has a bail hearing set for later today in Vancouver. She is wanted in the United States on charges of violating sanctions against Iran in a case that has stirred fears of deepening the trade war between Washington and Beijing. Alan Buknia reports.
Meng Wanzhou was arrested Saturday while in transit between flights in Vancouver's airport. She's wanted in the U.S. for selling American-made technology to Iran and other countries in violation of sanction laws. The Foreign Ministry expressed outrage at Meng's arrest and is demanding her immediate release. Huawei is the world's biggest supplier of network gear used by phone and internet companies. It's long been viewed in the U.S. and some allies as a front for spying by the Chinese military and security services, whose cyber spies are widely acknowledged as highly skilled. There are reports that the Japanese government plans to ban purchases of equipment from Huawei to beef up its defenses against intelligence leaks and cyber attacks. In Canada, where there's a publication ban on details of the case, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said there was nothing political about Meng's arrest.
The appropriate authorities took the decisions in this case. We were advised by them with a few days' notice that this was in the works, but of course there was no engagement or involvement in the political level in this decision because we respect the independence of our judicial processes. Further to that, I have not had any direct or indirect conversations with any of my international counterparts on this.
Meng's arrest sent shockwaves through world stock markets that had just been breathing a sigh of relief after Presidents Xi Jinping and Donald Trump had agreed to a 90-day truce in their trade war.
Well, I think the arrest came at a very sensitive time, just right after presidency and US President Donald Trump met at G20 meeting, just right after. So it gives some kind of like impression to the market that the 90 days of the Chinese and the US between the trade war will not actually improve the situation.
Alan Buknia, TVB News.
Iconic French monuments such as the Eiffel Tower will be closed on Saturday as authorities brace themselves for more violent riots this weekend. That's after an anti-government movement vowed to continue their protests even after the government gave in to their demands to suspend a fuel tax hike. Jeff Tang reports.
It may be known the world over as the City of Light and the City of Love, but Paris will be neither of those things come Saturday. That's because all of the iconic attractions that light up the French capital will be shut down that day due to more planned protests by the Yellow Vest movement. Operators of the Eiffel Tower, the Arc de Triomphe, the Louvre Museum and the Paris Opera have all announced closures on Saturday, barely a week after the city was rocked by its worst riots since 1968.
U.S. President Donald Trump is expected to nominate State Department spokesperson Heather Nauert as the next ambassador to the United Nations. If confirmed, the 48-year-old would succeed.
滋味係味蕾嘅感情，食物係味覺嘅語言。捉住呢隻味道，俾佢同味覺溝通。板長壽司美味在握。油甘魚壽司系列5款滋味5種享受，期間限定，依家8蚊就食到啦。
succeed Nikki Haley, who said in October she would leave the post at the end of the year. She's a former Fox News correspondent and anchor. Nwart became the State Department spokesperson in April of last year. She has no prior policy or political experience to deal with some of the world's thorniest issues. An announcement is expected later today.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. Great to see you.
And still to come in our newscast. Higher fees does little to lower A&E patient numbers or cut waiting times. Hong Kong braces for a chilly weekend ahead. And protesters clash with riot police in Greece.
Back to TVB News. Hospital authorities says waiting times and number of patients seeking emergency services remain unchanged. That's despite an increase in fees for A&E services. Sharon Tang with more.
Since June last year, 18 public hospitals started charging patients $180 for accident and emergency services or A&E services. The $80 increase was one of several measures to ease long waiting hours and overwhelming crowds seeking medical help. According to the latest figures released by the Hospital Authority, there was a 4.4% year-on-year drop in the number of people admitted to A&E services. That was mainly contributed by the 7% decrease in the number of non-urgent and semi-urgent patients. However, officials are seeing a 1% increase in the number of urgent, emergency, and critical patients. Waiting time also remains at around 30 minutes, which was similar before the new fees took effect. A hospital authority manager explains why this is.
This may be due to the increase in more severe patients, and also the aging population attended our A&E, and also the case complexity, which demand more investigation.
The hospital authority also noted a 4.5% drop in the number of A&E services staff. However, authorities say they are confident more doctors could fill in the vacant positions next year. Meanwhile, more will be done to reduce the number of elderly patients admitted to public hospitals.
We expect more and more elderly patients attending accident emergency department. So A department will work with the geriatrics teams so that we can strengthen our collaboration and also the outreach geriatric service.
For now, officials say they are not looking into charging A&E patients more, but urge the public to use these facilities wisely and appropriately. Sharon Tang, TVB News.
Authorities are reminding members of the public to bundle up. That's because temperatures are expected to drop in the next few days. The observatory noted a cold front associated with an intense winter monsoon is approaching the city. It believes temperatures will fall the most on Monday, reaching a low of 12 degrees Celsius. Social workers warn that the elderly are the most vulnerable.
When you eat, please try to eat high calorific value and digestible food like hot milk, hot soup, carbohydrates. Make sure you stay hydrated every day. When you take a bath or shower, please take a warm bath and a warm shower. When you dress, it's easy to overdress. Don't bundle up too much or wear overly tight clothes because it could affect blood circulation and make it easier for you to fall.
Over to Greece now, where angry protesters are rioting in the streets of Athens. They timed their action to mark the 10th anniversary of the fatal police shooting of a teenager.
Demonstrators set up a massive burning barricade in the Greek capital before they began pelting riot police with firebombs and rocks. They're doing it out of anger for police who shot and killed 15-year-old Alexis Grigoropoulos on December 6, 2008. Other protesters were captured setting cars on fire and hurling fireworks at officers who formed a line of defense aimed at warding off the rioters. 3 people were injured in the violence, including 2 policemen, and 35 suspected rioters were arrested. The clashes broke out after a peaceful march by about 1,700 people through central Athens on Thursday afternoon. As night began to fall, violence erupted and police began firing off tear gas at hooded protesters who were throwing objects and smashing up bus stops. That's when authorities deployed about 2,500 police and a helicopter to quell the violence. The chaos was so bad in central Athens, the main subway station was shut down. In the northern city of Thessaloniki, protesters also set up barricades in the streets and hurled Molotov cocktails at police. Officers responded with stun grenades and tear gas. The running clashes went on for hours as vandals set 2 subway construction sites on fire. At least 15 people were detained there. Protesters say they're still angry that Grigoropoulos was just enjoying a night out with friends when he was killed when a policeman fired his gun during an altercation a decade ago. That officer insists he never aimed at the teenager. It was his ricocheted bullet that killed him. Still, the officer was convicted of murder and sentenced to life in prison. His appeals trial is currently ongoing. The fatal police shooting triggered 2 weeks of violence in 2008. It spread to cities across Greece where residents took their anger out on police by vandalizing and looting stores, in addition to torching buildings and cars.
CNN's New York offices were evacuated last night over a bomb scare. Police say a man with a southern accent called and said there were 5 bombs placed throughout the Time Warner building. CNN's Don Lemon and Brian Stelter continued to broadcast outside via Skype. They were evacuated during a live show. Police units swept the building with the bomb squad nearby. The building was reopened 2 hours later. No bombs were found. In October, the Time Warner building was also partially evacuated after a serious, rather suspicious package with a crude pipe bomb was delivered to CNN. U.S. comedian and actor Kevin Hart has stepped down from his Oscar hosting duties following an outcry over his past tweets that were deemed homophobic. The 40-year-old said on Twitter that he withdrew because he did not want to be a distraction. He apologized to the LGBTQ community for his insensitive remarks from the past. Hart insists he is not homophobic. The outrage surrounds some of his anti-gay tweets, mostly dated from 2009 to 2011. Hart has since deleted the messages, but they have already been screen captured and shared online. This came just 2 days after Hart was tapped to host next year's Academy Awards.
And Texas residents lined the streets to say farewell to the 41st President of the United States. Thousands waved and cheered as the body of George H.W. Bush was escorted in a funeral train. The special train was fitted with clear sides so that people could catch a glimpse of his casket as it rumbled by. It was headed to his final resting place at Bush's Presidential Library at Texas A&M University. Another funeral service was held for Bush in Houston, where his favorite country western singers performed. The Oak Ridge Boys sang Amazing Grace, while Reba McEntire offered up her own musical version of the Lord's Prayer. And that is a wrap of our news.